Hey everyone, God bless you. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I've prepared a reflection for you today entitled IVF, in vitro fertilization. I'd like to speak to you about this for your edification because it's become a central issue in our cultural conversation, especially as we prepare tonight. This is Tuesday, and tonight will be the first debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And both of the candidates have articulated strong support for IVF. And it's been a controversial matter, especially for supporters, I think, of Donald Trump. I find it absolutely fascinating that at the heart of our cultural conversation and of this political moment are issues, ethical issues associated with the sexual revolution. Sexual ethics remain a major discussion in America. And it's so hard to moderate these conversations as a culture here in America. For those of you who are watching from other countries, we have had such an aggressive movement towards strict secularism, and yet we just can't shake. Of course, we can't shake our humanity. we can articulate a secular worldview, but that doesn't mean that we can change our very being. And human beings are, by definition, not secular. And so we can't escape having conversations of great import and feeling deeply about fundamentally ethical decisions. And so at the Democrat National Convention, Planned Parenthood is front and center. They bring their big bus and offer free abortions and free vasectomies for anyone coming and going. And this was not a shame to the leaders of the Democratic Party. This was they were so happy to have the support of Planned Parenthood. And President Trump has been speaking out a lot about issues with regards to abortion and with regards to in vitro fertilization. Of course, he was the champion of traditional Christians in the fact that he, in his first term, supported pro-life positions, fundamental ethic of Christians, Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholic Christians, more traditional evangelical type Protestant Christians, were pro-life, of course. And he was the first president to speak at the March for Life in Washington, D.C. And he fulfilled his promise to appoint originalist judges to the Supreme Court, and much to the happiness of people who believe children in the womb are children in the womb. In June of 2022, the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, the Dobbs decision, as it's been called, struck down the 1973 Roe versus Wade decision as bogus law, which even its supporters recognized it was. This, of course, has greatly galvanized those who are committed to the sexual revolution and view abortion as fundamental to kind of a new way of life, a new secular way of life, which it definitely is. It is the sacrament of secularism. It's become Vice President Harris's chief speaking point. She presents herself as a champion for legalized abortion, and has said that if she becomes the president of the United States, she will insist on a federal law legalizing abortion in all the states. President Trump said he was very happy that the bad Roe versus Wade decision was nullified, and that the decision has been now passed, the ethical decision about whether we're going to kill unborn children in the womb or not, has been passed to the states. Yet he hasn't stopped there. He has, in fact, also commented, much to the grief of the pro-life movement in America, upon the decisions that are being made by the states, criticizing states that are too pro-life for him, suggesting that there should not be any sort of early ban on abortion. I think he's supported a 15-week abortion ban, which, if that was accepted by the states, would still allow something like 80% of abortions to take place. Hardly a pro-life position that any traditional Christian can support. He has also very clearly articulated support for IVF, saying that in vitro fertilization absolutely should be legal in all 50 states, and going so far as to affirm that he would insist that it be considered basic health care, that it would be provided for all Americans in their health insurance packages. IVF, which is the fruit, the creation of technological development in the biomedical area, is something very recent and appears to provide a solution for infertile or sterile couples who really want children and think that they need to have a child to fulfill their own kind of sense, their own profound need to be parents. And I'm very sympathetic with that desire on the part of husbands and wives who can't have children. Certainly is a great grief to many when they are not able to bear children. Orthodoxy, traditional Christianity, has great concern over IVF. And I would like to just walk you through some of the thoughts and concerns that the church has with regards to in vitro fertilization. Number one, IVF is more fruit, developing, growing fruit of the sexual revolution. Modern technology introduces us to the fallen logic of sexual intercourse without reproduction. Of course, this is what is the principle of contraception. Sex and conception, or sex and childbearing, can be separated and have definitively been separated by the full cultural embrace of contraception. And also, the fallen logic of the sexual revolution has affirmed that reproduction can also take place without sexual intercourse. So sexual intercourse in this sexual revolution mind has nothing to do with childbearing, and also reproduction now can even be separated from sexual intercourse, which is, of course, the principle that underlines in vitro fertilization. That is the fertilization, the creation of an embryo outside of the embraces of love of a mother and father through the use of science and doctors. So that's number one. IVF is the continual development of the principles of the fallen logic, that is, of the sexual revolution. Number two, every human being in the teaching of Jesus in the church has a beginning that is a miracle, but has no end. There is no end to any human being. Death is not the end of any human being. Human beings are immortal by the decision of God. They will continue by the grace of God and by his power forever, every single human being. No one goes out of existence. And that gives every conception an immense potency and immense value. A human being, a single human being, is more valuable than all non-human creation, than the entire cosmos. This is the teaching of the church. This is how great it is to be a human being. And for this reason, the church celebrates conceptions. She celebrates Jesus' conception on the 25th of March. This is known as the Annunciation to the Theotokos. We celebrate the Virgin Mary's conception in the womb of her mother, St. Anna, December the 9th. We celebrate St. John the Baptist's conception in the womb of his mother, St. Elizabeth, 23rd of September. All of these conceptions are not just recognized, not just spoken about, they have their own feast days. They have complete liturgical hymnody written by the fathers of the church and the mothers of the church. And these conceptions are celebrated. Number three, assisted reproduction, like in vitro fertilization, is a majorly impressive achievement in medicine. That is for sure. The advancement of science to be able to extract sperm and egg and to create conditions in which the fertilization can be artificially accomplished is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. This is true. But it also is a technological and medical invasion into the most profound and sacred act of union between a man and a woman, what the church calls the mystery of conception, the collaboration between the husband and wife and God. That is the traditional understanding of conception. It is a mystery in which God is at work, as well as a man and a woman being given the great dignity and honor of collaborating with God in this mystery to bring an eternal being made in his image into being. That is amazing. That is incredible. And into that sacred space now comes modern technology and the medical field. In IVF, there are new players inserted into that traditional collaboration. Doctors harvest eggs, usually from the mother, although the eggs can come from other women. They use the husband's sperm to fertilize the egg outside the womb and outside of the context of the sexual union of the couple. That is towards the end, usually, of then taking one of those fertilized eggs, or as it's done traditionally in IVF, multiple eggs, and one by one, or sometimes several at a time, implanting them into the womb, into the uterus of the woman to see if a pregnancy can take place, and sometimes inserted into the womb of a surrogate whose womb may be more susceptible to successful implantation. Of course, it's not just doctors and nurses that are being inserted into this sacred act of reproduction. It's not just husbands and wives, by the way, who are using IVF. Of course, that itself is wrought with all sorts of ethical complications, but also others than men and women in marriage are utilizing IVF. Same-sex couples are using IVF. And if they're homosexual men, paying a surrogate to receive, have implanted, and then gestate the child, give birth to the child, and sometimes even nurse the child after birth, and then give that child to his or her parents. So same-sex couples are utilizing IVF. Also, single women are utilizing IVF. Children are being intentionally fashioned in both of these contexts, intentionally fashioned not to have a mother and a father, as though having a mother and a father is somehow, one option of many. Just to have one mother intentionally, or just to have two fathers, evidently are not ethical complications at all. That is not how the church sees it. Mother and father is normative and exceedingly important. To have two men raise you intentionally, excluding a mother, or to have just a single mother raise you intentionally, this is not best. This is not God's plan, and this is not best for the development of a child. And then, of course, we have to discuss the insertion of additional people involved in conception and gestation. And that this includes the surrogates, who are paid to do the work, the very marvelous, wondrous work of a mother, to gestate, to nourish this child, and oversee its development in the womb. And then there's the faceless and often nameless sperm donors, whose names are not included in the process of donating their sperm. Some of these men have fathered hundreds and hundreds of children in the same geographical area. There was an article that came out several years ago about a man who had fathered, through his sperm donations in Los Angeles, over 800 children. That is a very serious problem on many levels. Obviously, this process has not been well thought through and has not been morally evaluated. to think that the same man would anonymously father 800 children in the same locale. What do you think the potential for dangerous unions of these children ending up marrying a brother or a sister, a half-brother or a half-sister, that they had no idea was a half-brother or a sister? When your father has fathered 800 children in your town, the chances that you yourself might end up engaged or married to one of them, I would think, is rather high. And I would think you'd want to know that, since the challenges of that type of union are just horrible. All of these additional figures contribute to an insult, a very serious insult to the sacred act of lovemaking between a man and a woman that God has fashioned as the context for the conception of a human being. IVF leaves us with a multiplicity of very important questions. Are these faceless actors that in no way can claim association, can they in no way claim association with the word parent? If you're a surrogate mother, are you not to some degree the mother of that child? Is not gestation a part of the mothering process, an exceedingly important, formative, determinative process? Or if you gave your egg, but that egg was fertilized outside of yourself and planted into another woman's womb, and she gestated that egg for nine months, bore that child, nursed that child, and gave your child back, really, you can make a claim that you are the 100% complete mother and that woman's not a mother? Actually, lots of surrogate mothers have gone into the relationship contractually like that, and then found out through the process of implantation and gestation and delivery that they very much consider themselves to be the actual mother of that child. And there are all sorts of lawsuits going on in which surrogates don't want to give up the child. During the sacred moment of conception through IVF, the parents are not present. Does that not matter? Being conceived through the embraces of your parent in this act of love, being conceived in your maternal womb, is that really no different, with no different outcomes in your life than being conceived through the hands of a doctor with the assistance of nurses in a petri dish in a hospital or in a medical facility? Those really don't matter. This is full-blown asexual conception. God created us to be born out of profound marital love and union, not out of an artificial union of gametes. And what happens when it isn't the spouses requesting IVF? What happens when the state, perhaps when it doesn't have enough soldiers, suggests that all of the tens of thousands of embryos that are in freezers in reproductive clinics across the nation, who are awaiting destruction because most of them will not be used and implanted into anyone's womb? What happens when the state suggests that those are good potential soldiers? Are we really so far from an idea like that when we have desacralized conception as much as we have? Does being manufactured by doctors and nurses in a sterile medical facility instead of the maternal womb really not matter? And for those who use sperm donors, does the child not having your genetics not matter? Is that really the case? It matters for the woman who donates her egg but uses a surrogate. That's the basis of her claim for motherhood, is that she provided the genetics. But the father is going to be a father when they've used a sperm donor and his genetics aren't in the child at all? How do those two statements coexist? Of course, there are additional ethical problems with IVF. The storage and destruction of fertilized embryos is immoral. Every embryo has a right to life. Think of St. John the Baptist. In the womb of his mother, St. Elizabeth, when the most pure virgin, Theotokos, and ever Virgin Mary, came to visit Elizabeth after the Annunciation, the Lord Christ was just a small, tiny embryo in the virgin's womb. And yet when she crossed the threshold of Elizabeth's door, John the Baptist, 6 months gestated in his mother's womb, leapt and danced at the presence of the embryo Jesus Christ in the womb of the Virgin Mary. Just think about that. And then think about all of the embryos in freezers across the Western world. And what about the gathering, the immoral gathering of sperm? Most of the sperm that's donated is gathered in an immoral act. What will be done with the surplus and frozen embryos? Cryopreservation is a horrid problem, not a small problem. We don't believe in such a thing as surplus human beings. There are no surplus human beings. Every human being has dignity, massive value. All of these little embryos are called to communion with God and to communion with other persons. Can this be tolerated, to keep them in freezers and to have most of them destroyed? What is their destiny? Are they going to be experimented on? Are they going to be donated to other parents? Are they going to be used to grow organs? Organogenesis is going on for solving the needs of transplant patients. Every embryo in the image of God is in the image of God, every single one. And as such, should be given the chance to become like God, to mature. Then we have the issue of pre-implantation genetic manipulation, which is a very serious matter. These embryos, with our development of technology with regards to genetics, many are proposing that before they're implanted, that they experience genetic alteration. We have, dear ones, a massive desacralization process going on. Human beings are being desacralized, and they are being treated like machines. And the church cannot bless the normalization of IVF, as it is commonly performed today, as the solution to infertility. We can't do that. The church isn't trying to police people's lives, not at all. The church is laboring to love human beings and to help them meet the potential that God has given to them, to grow and develop with dignity, to be guided to the kingdom of God and to eternal life. This is the labors of the church. It's not trying to steal happiness from people. The church also does not oppose reasonable medical help, but encourages husbands and wives to live in simplicity and peace and to leave their lives in the hands of God. God is sovereign over fertility, giving and withholding blessing as he sees fit. We ought not try to force his hand by insisting on fashioning a human being in a petri dish using IVF. The creation of a new human being is a matter of immense significance. Every human being unites the invisible and the visible world, connected to the invisible through his soul, to the visible through his body. We are not the cause of our own existence. God fashions man, not just an embryo, but an invisible and eternal soul. And all discussion of the beginning of human life should be done with awe, with a deep sense of wonder. The soul comes into existence with the body of every human being. God works a miracle in every human conception. If you want to know more about that, read the 29th chapter of St. Gregory of Nyssa on the making of man, where he describes that the soul and the body come into existence and develop at the same time, neither preceding the other. We call the Lord the giver of life in the Nicene Creed. The Lord, not man, not technology. The Lord is the giver of life, and we ought to be very careful to avoid the hubris of thinking that we ourselves make life. God has made us and given us the honor of cooperating with him in the production of human life. This is true. It's a process of great honor, and we ought to submit to his will. The scriptures are very clear that God is involved in conception, in granting fertility or withholding fertility. Our efforts to overcome sterility ought to be based in humble prayer, a resignation to God's will, not an insistence on our own will. We ought remember, too, the miracles of God granting fertility to those who thought they could never conceive, like the holy patriarch Abraham and his wife Sarah, or Saints Joachim and Anna, or Saints Zacharias and Elizabeth. None of those couples, such famous couples, had any possibility, short of a miracle of God, of conceiving. And yet God granted this miracle. And he didn't just do it then. I don't think there's a parish that has any history at all in which there aren't miracles of conception, in which the sadness of infertility has been overcome by the grace of God, much to the astonishment of the physicians. We have our own way of seeking God's will for fertility. Saints who are so attentive and helpful in accomplishing these tasks. The Mother of God especially. I know here in my own parish, we have more than one child who has been born as a direct gift from God through the intercessions of the Holy Virgin Mary. Her sash, which is her greatest relic left to the church, is preserved today at the holy monastery of Vatopedi on Mount Athos. And when I went there in the 1990s, I came back with what they commonly pass out, the Holy Fathers pass out at the monastery, portions of cloth that they rest upon the sash of the Mother of God every evening. And then they cut them into pieces and put them together in a little satchel with prayers that couples can use. The wife can wear around her waist and engage in 40 days of fasting and prayer. So many children have been given by God through the intercessions of the Most Pure Virgin Mary to couples that were not capable of conceiving. We have our own ways. And remember, infertility does not dissolve marriage, nor is it a disgrace to husbands and wives. Every couple that is experiencing infertility should prayerfully seek to discern the providence of God in their life. Why is it that He has not granted fertility? There may be many beautiful reasons for that. He may be encouraging the couple through His divine providence to adopt children. He may be calling that couple to a task that they simply could not accomplish if they were raising sons and daughters. Those who insist on using any means to obtain their own will might find that terrible problems arise by such willfulness that they find insurmountable in their own parenting. Don't let the natural desire to be parents turn your life of faith into a life of stubborn willfulness. Don't do it, dear ones. Trust the Lord with your life. Children belong to God more than they belong to us, more than they belong to their own parents. God grants children as a great blessing, but for His purposes, not for our sometimes selfish wishes. If you'd like a deeper dive into IVF and the question of bioethics in a secular age, I would like to recommend several sources to you. The first are the writings of His Eminence Metropolitan Nikolaos of Mesogea in Greece. He is a member of the Holy Synod of the Church of Greece and also the chair of their bioethics committee. You can look online for Metropolitan Nikolaos's articles. He has many writings about the subject of technology in general and biomedical ethics. I also would recommend the books of the late Orthodox Christian bioethicist, Reader Herman, as some people know him in his professional name, Dr. Tristan Engelhardt Jr. His Foundation of Christian Bioethics is a beautiful text, as is his After God, Morality, and Bioethics in a Secular Age. Dr. Engelhardt, God rest his soul, was an old friend of mine. He came here to St. Andrew Church in Riverside, I think it was 1999, 25 years ago, and did a medical ethics conference for us here. Just a wonderful and devoted Orthodox Christian. He's greatly missed. I hope this has been edifying for you. I ask your prayers and ask God to keep you in the palm of His hand. God be with you. Patristic Nectar Publications is blessed to present a new publication never before translated into the English language, entitled Against All Heresies, with a dialogue against the Latins and chapters on prayer. by the great 14th century Archbishop and theologian St. Simeon of Thessalonica. This profound work offers Christians a compact heresiology and a holistic introduction to the Church's theology. Greatly edifying for both clergy and laity, Against All Heresies addresses critical issues of immediate relevance, including the Orthodox Church's relationship to both Islam and Roman Catholicism. This new text is available in two formats, a hardcover edition with the original Greek text or a paperback edition in English. It's also available on audiobook and ebook. Order your copies today at patristicnectar.org.